What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. So, Michigan State football gets embarrassed at home for homecoming against UCLA. 38-13 loss. Move Michigan State's record to 3-3 on the year. 0-3 now in the Big Ten with 3 straight losses. So, yeah, not a fun afternoon in Spartan Stadium. This was a game that Michigan State absolutely needed to win. They came out on both sides of the ball and had good first possessions on defense and on offense. Things were looking fairly good. But everything after that first offense possession, that first defense possession, completely downhill the rest of the game. And not just the product on the field, but I'll say for the most part, the stands, for what was a pretty packed stands, homecoming I think had to do with that as well, decent weather as well. But, the stands showed up physically. I'm not going to say the stands, which, the product on the field didn't give much to cheer about, but I have some opinions on that as well that we'll get to. But before we do jump into this game, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button down there. We'll have more Michigan State football content on the channel throughout the season. Michigan State basketball as well. We'll still have a Michigan State Madness video up as well. Going to talk about it a little bit more. But obviously that's just a 10-minute scrimmage in Michigan State Madness from last Friday. But we're going to talk about it, as we get into the season here. We are fastly approaching the basketball season here. So just make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video. So we'll start with UCLA. We'll just kind of go through the players here real quick. Nico Amaliava was obviously the main, point of conversation coming into this game. He had an incredible last week against Penn State to pull off that big-time upset for their first win of the season against a highly rated Penn State team. Obviously, recording this after Penn State has now lost 3 straight games, just like Michigan State. But, obviously a different story for them. They came into the season, ranked number 2 in the country, so different expectations. But back to Nico, 16 for 24, 180 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns. Michigan State was able to contain him for the most part on the ground. 6 carries, 3 yards, no touchdowns. But, Nico was making all the right plays, for the most part, distributing this thing, was making on-time throws, was patient as well. And then his receivers were able to get open for him. Jalen Berger, former Spartan, had a really good day. 12 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. And he also added 3 catches for 24 yards and 2 touchdowns. 3 total touchdowns for the former Spartan, Jalen Berger, back in Spartan Stadium. But Xavier Thomas on the ground for UCLA as well. 12 carries, 54 yards, and a touchdown. Anthony Frias II, 7 for 37. 4 for 32 for Anthony Woods. A 20-yard run from Cole Martin. Overall for UCLA, 43 carries for 238 yards. Yeah, absolutely gashing Michigan State on the ground, which was a strength for Michigan State at the beginning of this year. Receiving as well. As much as UCLA was gashing Michigan State on the ground, they were making some big plays through the air, and they really spread this thing out. 2 for 46 for Mikey Matthews. Hudson Hammermell. Apologize pronouncing that wrong. I'm sure I did. 3 catches for 35 yards. 2 for 27. Rico Flores Jr. Jalen Berger, as we mentioned, 3 for 24 and 2 touchdowns as well. Titus Mokiayo Atamali, 1 catch, 12 yards, and a touchdown as well. 180 yards through the air. Defensively for them, we talked about coming into the game. They struggled with getting to the quarterback as well. They had 1 sack in this game, 4 tackles for loss. So, kind of, what you expected from the defensive front from UCLA. But Michigan State didn't do itself any favors attacking that UCLA defense either, which we'll get to here in a second. They did miss a field goal earlier in the game, which was kind of a point where it's like, things started out really well, as we talked about for Michigan State. Kind of started to drop off when they missed that field goal. It was like, hey, can Michigan State turn this around? No, they couldn't. But overall, a really solid game now in back-to-back weeks for UCLA, putting up 38 points again. Now they're 2-4, 2-1 in the Big Ten. I mean, you just got to win over a highly ranked Penn State team, which obviously that looks a little different now. I mean, it was a different team last week, but, looks a little bit different. And then Michigan State, who obviously we have been struggling this year as well. But still, UCLA, after firing their coach earlier this year, 2 really big wins over the last 2 weeks. So now we'll switch it over to Michigan State. We'll start out with Aiden Childs. 8 for 17, 66 yards. He carried the ball 6 times for 9 yards and a touchdown on that first drive. Started the drive. Like we said, that first drive for Michigan State went really well. Right down the field after the defense got a stop, got the ball to the offense, drove all the way down the field. I think it was like an 11, 13 play drive. and then he was able to capitalize by getting into the end zone. For Aiden Childs, he did get banged up in the third quarter, didn't return to the game. Don't know. I haven't seen any official announcement on, any injury or anything, but you obviously hope he's okay. Still missing some throws that we didn't see the first 4 weeks of the season. Overthrown Omari Kelly sometimes, overthrown some running backs, which is the main thing. Like, he's still not, like, he did have the 2 interceptions last week, but he's not doing what was doing last year in the sense of throwing the ball into triple coverage or, stuff like that. But still a lot of stuff to still improve on for Aiden Childs, but his offensive line isn't giving him any help either. Alessio Milojevic did come in for him, 8 for 18 for 100 yards and a touchdown for Alessio. Had a carry for 9 yards as well. And on the ground, not outside of Mekhi Frazier, 12 carries, 58 yards. Not much to write home about. No one else had over 10 yards on the ground for Michigan State. 87 total yards. That's 3.5 per carry. Just absolutely not good enough. Again, a lot of that circles back to the offensive line because Mekhi Frazier, will give him some credit that he was running into, what were supposed to be holes, but was the backs of the offensive line or defensive players coming forward, and he was able to turn a 0 or -1 or 2 yard play and turn it into maybe a 3 or 4 yard gain. So, got to give credit to Mekhi. They're turning that around and then receiving. Did listen, targeted Nick Marsh quite a bit. 7 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. Kershawn McCray had a nice catch for 23 yards. Omari Kelly, though, only 2 catches for 21 yards. Those targets need to go up. 16 catches on the day for Michigan State receivers. Nick Marsh had 7 of them. That's a good range every game. There's no reason that Nick Marsh shouldn't have at least 7 catches every game. 7 to 10, I feel like, should be the range. And, that's what we start seeing. But Omari Kelly should have, 4 to 8, somewhere in that range catches as well. Jack Velling had 2 for 16. Michael Masunas, 2 for 13 as well. I would like those receptions to go up as well. And some of that is that Michigan State didn't have the ball a lot. So they didn't have a whole lot of offensive plays, or they were going 3 and out and they weren't extending drives, or, stuff wasn't working. Michigan State had the ball for less than 24 minutes this game. A total of 35 passes, 25 runs. But overall, the share to Nick Marsh, consistently trying to get him the ball. They got him the ball in a jet sweep as well, took it for 6 yards, 7 catches on the night. You need your best player. Nick Marsh is a top 5 receiver in this country. Continue to get him the ball, but Omari Kelly, I believe, is an NFL wide receiver. Continue to get him the ball more. Jack Velling, Michael Masunas, I think, are both NFL-type tight ends, but also the running game needs to open some of that up, especially for the tight ends as well. With how the offensive line has been playing, if they're having to stick in there and block some more to help make up for, some of the offensive line play, that can also affect that too. And speaking of the offensive line, that was obviously a big talking point last week, especially the tackle position, and ran the same lineup essentially in terms of tackle out there this game. First drive went okay, but then by, I believe it was Michigan State's second drive, where I believe stuff really started to snowball downhill for Michigan State, is when they went for it on 4th and 1. I love being aggressive. They went for it on 4th and 1. I believe it was at the UCLA 30, or it was at the Michigan State, 35, 40. Like, they were on their side of the field. UCLA was going to have a short field if Michigan State didn't convert. And shocker that they, saw that was a problem last week in terms of that specific tackle position, and they run a toss, pitch play, whatever you want to say, on 4th and 1 to that specific tackle area. That was a problem last week, and they don't get it. And then UCLA is a short field. Things just kind of keep rolling from there. So definitely still a lot of question marks about this offensive line. The injury, obviously, to Stanton Ramil at the left tackle position. He'll be out about a month. So when that was announced, I believe that was 3 weeks ago now. So, possibly we're still looking at another, 2-3 weeks without Stanton Ramil at the left tackle position, which is why, the shifting of the offensive line has had to occur. But besides that, I still don't get the flipping of the offensive line. Obviously, they did flip out after those first couple drives. They did switch out Lepo and put in Rustin Young as well. made that switch at the tackle position and put Connor Moore back at right tackle. But yeah, the offensive line has to improve. I mean, it's the name of the game. It's boring to talk about, but it's what we said going into the year. It's what anyone that's watching this thing is going to say. Like, if the offensive line can't protect Aiden Giles, can't create some running lanes for Mekhi Frazier, Brandon Tullis, Elijah Tautalliver, Aiden, this running game, then this is some of the results we're going to see. Maybe not this extreme as it was today, because it was bad out there, but as a whole, should I say. But offensive line stuff needs to get figured out, and it needs to get figured out quick before this thing keeps snowballing. The defense, as we said, just got kind of gashed in the running game. At the cornerback position, the UCLA wide receivers, they were able to make some pretty big plays downfield, but the defense as well. Just one play that kind of sticks out in my head. It was a third and 16, I think it was. They got 14 yards, went for it on 4th and 2, and yeah, you can't stop it in the short field, and UCLA got the first down there. That just kind of sums up the defense right now, in my opinion. And Jordan Hall, I thought, again, played a really good game. He's, obviously our best defensive player. He had a good game, 7 tackles, 7 solo. We had 2 sacks on the game, 3 tackles for loss, but, just getting gashed in the run game, now for a handful of weeks now, which was a strength, has always been a strength at Michigan State, but, even just looking at this team this year, that was a strength the first couple weeks, and now over the last couple weeks since then has definitely been a big issue here for Michigan State. And we'll get into this next. Speaking about Malik Spencer's tackle for loss, but Alex Van Sumeren 6 tackles, Amarian Smith 6 tackles, 2 solo. And also some news on the defensive front. Jalen Thompson was out for this game, and then Analu Lafalele for Michigan State as well. He's actually now out for the season, and that injury list for Michigan State continues to grow, unfortunately, every week. So, wish both of them, hope both of them heal up quick and get out there. Jalen Thompson didn't say that was a long-term thing, but we still didn't have Nikai Martinez out there. He's only really been out there for 1 game, essentially, or 1 or 2 games for Michigan State this year, but has been battling injuries. When you look at Nikai Martinez, he was really one of your top 3 defenders last year. Coming into this year, you expected him to play a big part of this, what should have been an improved defense, but unfortunately just, has been battling injuries and hasn't been out there. So that's been unfortunate, and I think, some reason why the defense has looked the way it's looked, and especially with a lot of the injuries over the last couple weeks. But look, overall for this game, then I said I would talk about this from the top. The game as a whole, in terms of atmosphere, product on the field, fan, everything. The fans, while it took a while to fill up, the stadium was, I'd say 85-90% full for the most part. The student section is what took the longest, but it did get to the upper bowl, say 95-ish% full up there. And they were there. They had their towels. They were waving, and the rest of the fans, they were there. It was homecoming, so you got a lot of people back on campus, but it felt like the crowd was, and this is just speaking freely, I'm not saying, I do think this had some effect on the game, but I'm not saying this is the reason they lost 38-13. The crowd was there, but they weren't there, if that makes sense. Like, I can think of, a handful of times that, hey, it was a big 3rd down, and people were up, and like, yep, like, let's get this stopped, or like, whatever. You got the bells ringing. I can think of a handful of times. It definitely wasn't all game and didn't make an impact in the game, which is very unfortunate because Spartan Stadium can be an incredibly tough place to play for an opposing team. Granted, this is a 12 o'clock game. A 3-2 Michigan State team coming off of 2 tough losses against a UCLA team that isn't supposed to be any good, even though they just beat Penn State last week. Coming in, like, yes, it's homecoming, it's an early game, whatever, but still, that was definitely disappointing. But then the players, too, it just seemed like there was no energy at all. Like, even to really start the game. Like that first drive, like a little bit. And, before the game started, I got a text about, 10-ish minutes before the game started and was like, oh, hope you have a good time. Like, enjoy your day, whatever at the game. And I was like, I'll let you know in about 20 minutes whether I'm going to enjoy my day or not, because I was like, if Michigan State doesn't come out with a different attitude and swinging, and, you just had 2 tough losses in 2 games that you definitely had a chance to win if it weren't for mistakes that you made or that Michigan State made to lose those games. Credit to USC and Nebraska for winning those games. They made plays to win those games, yes. But Michigan State had opportunities in both of those games to win those games. And they didn't make the plays to do that, which is very frustrating. You're coming home. You should be coming out swinging against a UCLA team that you are better than, that you were, a couple weeks ago. This seemed like a game that you were going to be favored by 16, 17 and a half, somewhere around there. You came in, it started the week at I think 8.5, 9.5, 8.5. You closed at 7.5. So definitely very disappointing on that front. That there was no energy there. There was a Malik Spencer. I saw someone else call this out. I think it was Matt Seibert on Twitter called this out. Malik Spencer had a tackle for loss. He's in the backfield celebrating by himself. No one's over there patting him on the head, celebrating, doing what you're supposed to do. So that was very disappointing as well. And then just overall, I'll say this one thing Michigan State has been able to do this year is even when they have got down, they've been able to continue to fight and get back. We didn't really see that in this game, which is very disappointing. Obviously, we'll finish the stats right here. Third down efficiency, 8 for 15 for Michigan State, 6 for 13 UCLA, but they were 3 for 3 on fourth down, 0 for 4 for Michigan State. 418 total yards compared to 253, not going to get the job done. 238 yards rushing to 87 for Michigan State, 180 through the air for 166 for Michigan State. Penalties, 8 for 60 for UCLA. Michigan State only had 2 penalties for 14 yards. Didn't matter, though. Obviously lost the fumble. Michigan State did. Time of possession, I think, is the biggest thing. 36-24 for UCLA, 23-36 for Michigan State. But listen, obviously the big discussion, there was people that wanted Jonathan Smith gone last year. People after these last 2 losses too, that noise has got a lot louder. I said where I was at coming into this game. I still like Jonathan Smith. That's what I said coming into this game. I said these next 3 games are very important. I said these next 3 games, you need to go 2-1, and you need to beat that school down the road in the rivalry game. You're off to an 0-1 start, so now you have to go on the road to what's probably going to be an Indiana team that just beat Oregon. Probably going to be a top 5 or so team that you're going into Bloomington next week that you have to beat, and then you have to beat your rival at home. So not off to a good start in my 3-game window that we're looking at here. But listen, after this game, I'm not there yet. I've been one of the loudest Jonathan Smith defenders in this fan base, but especially after it's the energy part and the way that this game especially went. If Jonathan Smith doesn't win the rivalry game here in 2 weeks, then I'm not saying I'm not going to watch this team, not support this team, not show up, whatever. But if he doesn't win this rivalry game, then, I think that discussion is absolutely fair. I don't blame people for how they feel right now and being frustrated, because this is now, essentially of the last 5 years, this is 4 of the last 5 years, what this product has been like. And the last couple years of Mark D'Antonio, it was Mark D'Antonio's team, so you always felt like he had a chance, but, it had an incredible defense, whatever. But this is 4 or 5 years of different than those last couple years of Mark D'Antonio's, time here at Michigan State. These last 4 or 5 years, we've seen these type of games way too many times for Michigan State. So that's the frustrating part. If you go out and beat Indiana, you come home, get a win against your rival, you're sitting at 5-3. Things are looking a lot different, but you're battling a very tough uphill battle here. And I hope they can do it. I'll still be here supporting, but definitely a frustrating afternoon overall. But yeah, that's where we sit. So Michigan State unfortunately loses on homecoming to UCLA 38-13. That'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.